Are you looking to establish a powerful online presence for your brand? Look no further than Live the Dream Media. Our team of experts possess the capabilities and skills necessary to make it happen. From creating compelling content to analyzing data and making strategic decisions, we've got it covered. Don't let a lack of social media know-how hold you back. Visit ltdmedia.net for more information.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
We can print anything on our soft vanilla logo cookies. We deliver them and other sweet treats locally. We are located at 4249 West Ina Road, Suite 121. Call us 520-300-1131. We bake smiles.
Copper Creek Cookies, Copper Creek Cookies, coppercreekcookies.net.
Hey, good morning, and welcome back to another episode of Local Marana. We're doing something a little different this morning. We got something that's consistent. We've got the mayor, but we're going live. Ed, you are live.
I think I am alive, actually. Thank you for having me, Clint.
Welcome to Local Marana. I don't know how many episodes we've done, but it's
couple
several.
Million.
Yeah.
But, I want to talk about something today that I think a lot of us have lost. You know, a lot of times it's not what you know, but who you know.
Preach.
And relationships are so important, whether it's government or personal, to making things happen and making things work. And I thought, well, I'd give you a couple government, things that have happened because of relationships. Mm-hmm. I'm going to start back with Gabby Giffords, former Congresswoman from our district. Marana was in her district in the early days. And we built a great relationship with her. She used to come to a lot of our chamber functions and our State of the Town functions and pretty much on a first-name basis with the Congresswoman. No disrespect, just as a person.
Right.
And there were things that we needed back in the day. And one of them was FEMA had come into Marana back in the 90s and wanted to put Marana entirely in the floodplain, in the floodway, actually, which would have ruined us.
Yeah. And
we were like, what can we do? What can we do? I talked to Gabby. Our management team talked to Gabby. And I'm not disrespecting the Congresswoman.
Correct.
I'm talking about personal.
Right.
And we said, we're in a big jam here. FEMA's trying to put us all in the floodway. It could ruin what will happen to Marana in the future. And we don't know what to do. They won't listen to us. Gabby Giffords went to a guy named Barney Frank, who I didn't have anything in common with, very liberal, the Democratic chairman of the Finance Committee in the U.S. Congress. And she said, Chairman, she was a freshman in Congress at the time. I'm getting ready to run for re-election in my district, and FEMA is just killing the town of Marana. They're putting 100% of it in the floodplain, and the town said, well, hey, if you let us do a survey, we hired Clint Glass, who's one of the best water people in the world for doing that kind of stuff, and we'll show you we're not in the floodway. And FEMA said no. Barney Frank called FEMA and said, we're going to hold your funding. Now, this is a national organization from the chairman of the Finance Committee, built on a relationship with Gabby Giffords until you listen to this Congresswoman in this little community of Marana, which was probably 20,000 people at the time. We're now 60, about this floodplain issue. To make a long story short, they came to the table. We did the survey. And about 95% of the land they had put in the floodway came back out. Marana's now the fastest growing community in southern Arizona. It was built on a relationship with Gabby Giffords.
Thank you, Gabby.
Thank you, Gabby.
And she knew exactly to take that one step further,
Right.
who she needed to call because of
But
relationships.
it's relationships. I want to tell you another story with Gabby. Marana Health Center had built their new facility in North Marana there. You've been there many times, Clint. It's a beautiful
Yes, it is.
facility, and it's one of the biggest health centers in southern Arizona now. And they wanted to build a behavioral health building. To make a long story short, the town of Marana Health Center, had a relationship with Gabby Giffords. Asked her for some help. Gabby got an $8 million grant that built that behavioral health center, that 2-story beautiful building right in the main campus of Marana Health Center today in North Marana. What a godsend, because of a relationship with her. You know, and right now in this country, behavioral health and counseling and helping people get back in the workforce and suicide prevention and all those kinds of things, Marana has one of the best behavioral health centers in the country, not just the state. Relationship with Gabby Giffords.
And you know, that serves such a underserved portion of our community, the health, because we got a third of our society that's struggling with a lot of major issues. And again, a relationship with one person in this case kind of solved the problem.
Gabby Giffords is a Democrat. I'm a lifetime Republican. She worked with me because we had a relationship.
Put parties aside.
Right.
What's good for the whole.
So I want to move down the road to another person, Vince Leach, former House member and Senate member in District 11. We're now District 17. And a couple things that he did because of a relationship. Vince used to come to our chamber breakfasts. In fact, he started coming again. And he would come to functions at the town, state of the town, or he would actually come to the town to talk to us. So we built a relationship. A couple things that Vince did. A couple years ago, we wanted to get a little bit of money to help us with the Twin Peaks widening that we're working on right now to finish it all the way to the freeway, 4-lane divided and everything like that. Because of the relationship we had with Vince, he put $5 million on the budget a couple years ago to help Marana on that transportation project. We got the money, $5 million.
Yeah, that growth there's crazy.
Another thing that Vince did is when we were having the issues with Pima County on wastewater, and we wanted to own our wastewater plant and control our destiny in Marana, because we have a pretty good relationship with our people, and we answer to them directly. But the county said no. Because of that relationship with Vince Leach and working with him, he was able to get a bill through the legislature and signed by the governor that forced the county to sell the wastewater plant to Marana.
That's awesome.
Which is a thriving plant today. We've done expansion to it. It's one of the best plants in the state. And it's taking care of the people in the growing parts of Marana where we really need that stuff. And we don't have to go to somebody else to get permission because we own the plant.
Imagine that burden of doing that with the growth that you're experiencing. That's a whole nother can of worms that got eliminated.
Basically the county controlled our growth and where it was put and everything else. And a lot of it was Mr. Huckleberry, and I don't wish him any ill will at all. In fact, I hope he recovers 100% from the accident he had. But he could tell us what and when we could build because he controlled our wastewater.
Yeah.
Vince Leach, because of a relationship with him on a personal level, helped us get out of that deal. So there's another place that having a personal relationship and talking to people works. I want to move forward to today. We just had an election last November in 22, a little over a year ago. And we got 3 new people elected to the legislature. Justine Wadsack as a senator, and Rachel Jones and Cory McGarr in the House of Representatives. I wouldn't have known any of those 3 people if they were standing in front of me at the time. But because we're a community built on relationships, and the council and Terry Rosema and all of us said, hey, and it was before I think they were even sworn in, let's invite them to the town for a breakfast. So we did. All 3 of them showed up. Our council was there. Our senior staff was there. We had a breakfast. We talked about government and who had kids and grandkids and all that kind of stuff, but we built a relationship with those 3 individuals. They've been in office for less than 1 term. They haven't sine-died yet in the legislature in their first term. What those people have done for us because of the relationship we have with them. We just got a $10 million grant from the state because Justine Wadsack, Rachel Jones, and Cory McGarr put that in the budget, which was approved earlier than any budget in history, I think. And you got those 3 individuals are pretty right-wing, and the governor's pretty left-wing, but they were able to push it to the middle. But to make a long story short, we got $10 million. Why? Because we invited them to come to our community, those 3 people. I talk to Justine once a week because of some things going on at the legislature. I talked to Justine and Rachel last week on the phone. Relationship. $10 million. We need to redesign the Cortero interchange. We've got some really innovative ideas because it's about the heaviest traveled interchange in the whole urban area.
Got to be.
And it's functioning. We've done some repairs. We added extra lanes and stuff to it, but we need to do more. But those 3 folks, Justine, Rachel, and Cory, did something for us. I'm going to tell you something else they did. There was a bill introduced in the legislature this year by Senator Steve Kaiser, who is a Republican from Phoenix, on taking zoning away from cities and towns. And he had a bunch of financial backing from Central Arizona home builders, and they're not on my good list right now. And basically, it would make zoning just go away, and builders could build whatever they want, wherever they want, with the amenities they want, and it was just going to be horrible.
A disaster.
I called Justine Wadsack, who I hadn't met before that breakfast at the town of Marana. And I said, Senator, and after a while it was just Justine and Ed because we become friends. We're not just colleagues. I said, this bill that Senator Kaiser is introducing is horrible. And she says, well, how do you know that? And I said, well, I'm on the executive board at the Arizona League of Cities. And I said, we've gone through the bill at the executive board meetings, and I mean, it could destroy cities and towns in the state of Arizona. And Marana would be one of those communities because we're a fast-growing community. Senator Wadsack and the Freedom Coalition in the Senate and the House helped stall that bill, and they couldn't get it passed. They tried to reform it. They tried to change it. They tried to put lipstick on the pig. You know what? Justine and Rachel and Cory stood their ground. Those bills all came up yesterday, and we're all defeated.
DOA.
Relationships.
Yeah.
Those 2 ladies and that young man. Everybody's young compared to me, but I mean, it's those 3 people that we didn't know from Adam have become friends. Yeah, they're state reps and they're state senators, and I'm the mayor from the community, but it's become different. I call Justine Watsack and talk to her, and half the time we're talking about her kids or my grandkids or whatever. We're not even talking about government anymore. But we've lost that in our society. You have to build relationships with people. You're not always going to agree. But because you have that relationship, you can move forward. So we killed that zoning bill. Thank you, Justine, Rachel, and Corey.
Yeah.
And we got $10 million.
Thank you again.
Thank you, Justine,
Double,
Rachel,
double,
and Corey.
double. Yeah.
And that's in their first legislative session, and they're all newbies. They weren't political figures before.
Yeah, never heard of them.
Relationships count.
Yeah.
Treating people with dignity and respect, whether they're in the other party or not. So I want to go to another example I had, and this is relationship stuff. Pastor Dave Hedgepath from the Marana Community Christian Church, been a really good friend for 20 years. Great guy. They built a facility outside the town of Marana, but a Marana mailing address, but more out in the county. They were doing an expansion to what the food bank does, which is right there where their church is, and was their property, and they turned it over to the food bank, and it's been expanded. They were doing a commodities bank out in the valley, because food bank will give you food, paper towels, toilet tissue, feminine products, laundry detergent, dishwashing detergent. They don't give you. Well, you know what? If you're a young family, you need that stuff.
Right.
And if you can't afford to eat,
you can't afford that for certain.
You're not going to buy feminine products and toilet paper if you can't feed your kids. I'm sorry. And so they were opening a facility out in the valley, which is open now, but they couldn't get permitting. I mean, they couldn't get their permit approved. And I went out and toured the facility with them, went and had lunch with them and a couple of people, and went out to their facility. What a beautiful facility. This is not a for-profit organization. This is somebody that's going to give commodities to people to help them. And he said, we just can't get our permits approved. They're just red tape and all this kind of stuff and everything. So I called Sharon Brunson, Democrat. Now, I started with a Democrat, went with some Republicans, went back to a Democrat here. We have a relationship. We don't always agree, but we're courteous to each other, respect each other in what we do. I said, Sharon, the Marana Community Church has built a commodities like food bank out in the valley in an area that really needs it, and they just can't get their stuff approved. And I said, it's a beautiful building. I toured it myself. She said, let me make a few calls, and I'll see if I can help you. About an hour later, Carmine DeBonis, deputy county manager, calls me and says, Mayor, what's going on? What's happening here? I said, Carmine, explained to him about the church and the commodities thing, and they're not making any money. They're giving these products to people to make their lives better. And they're just having all kinds of problems. He said, okay, let me do a little checking. He calls me back in 2 hours. He said, they will have the permit tomorrow.
Yay.
Relationship with Sharon. And I know Jan and Carmine as well. But I mean, and all these people are Democrats, by the way, and I'm a Republican. It had nothing to do with political animosities. It had something to do with this church trying to serve people. And I don't go to that church. I know a lot of people there, and I'm friends with the pastor. But trying to serve a whole bunch of people outside the town of Marana, so it's not a political thing for me, and having all this red tape, I called my Democrat friends, and the next day they got a permit to serve those people, to help those people. It's built on relationships.
I'm thinking about, as you share these stories, we're talking about local, we're talking about state, we're talking about federal, We're talking about Democrats, Republicans, left, right. But the common bond in that all of that is one phone call to another phone call made these things happen. All those other things were left. I mean, it wasn't important what political affiliation you were involved with to get a non-for-profit to give away stuff. You guys, I'm just amazed that you were able to reach that many people at that many different levels of that many different persuasions and get positive outcomes. Not only it's not for yourself, it's for the community as a whole. And again, how important are relationships? I was thinking this morning on our way to breakfast, that's the business I'm in. I want to be in the people business. I can build a business or a product after that if I've got the right people around me in the first place.
If you don't respect people,
boom.
They don't have to agree.
Right. Let's get that clear.
They don't have to
Let's get
agree.
that clear. Matter of fact, we're not going to agree on everything, Ed.
But I look at these things, and I think a lot of these were built on, and talking at the town of Marana and as me as an individual, build relationships with people. In fact, I was talking to Justine and Rachel last week, and it wasn't over things at the legislature. There's been a lot of fighting within the party here locally. I'm trying to set up some lunches to bring a bunch of those people together within the party, have lunch, discuss what we're talking about, and the whole thing is build a rapport, build a relationship, talk to each other. You may not agree. I've had people do things after sitting and talking to them that I really didn't agree with. And then after the meeting, I go down and have a beer with them or something. Yeah. I didn't dislike them. They had a different idea, but we had a relationship that we could talk about things.
You know, you mentioned that, Ed. That's the way it used to be. And we need more of that. Just because we disagree doesn't mean we can't be friends, can't be buddies, can't share experience at the Little League.
But your relationships can really help people. I'm going to give you another, and this is a personal thing. Jim Colby, former congressman here, after the Vietnam War, I came home in pretty good shape. No more messed up than when I went. My brother went over there, and he really came back in pretty sad shape. Got a Purple Heart, got blown off a tank, and it really messed him up. And he was trying to get into the Veterans Administration and maybe get a little bit of financial help because he wasn't able to work and do a lot of things like that. And we just hit wall after wall after wall. I had personal conversations with Jim Colby on everything under the sun for years. I called him up. And I said, Jim, my brother is a Vietnam veteran. He was injured. It has really messed him up. Not so much mentally, but maybe emotionally.
Yeah.
And he really needs some help here with what's going on. That congressman made a couple phone calls, and my brother got the help he wants, and he's still getting it today. Relationships, you build a rapport. That's something that affected me personally. I mean, I love my brother, and I want him to have the help. He served our country, and he was injured, and different things happened, you know. But because of the relationship with Kobe, we were able to get some of that stuff done. You don't realize how much relationships matter. If I go to a function, State of the Town, which you've been at several times, or a chamber luncheon or a chamber breakfast, I want to talk to everybody in the room. And literally, now that I don't drive and a lot of people take me, you know, they're like, all right, Mayor, talk to everybody early so that we can. And the idea is, take the mayor hat off.
Yes.
I'm Ed.
Yes.
I put my pants on one leg at a time, just like you do.
Yes.
And I want to speak to everybody in that room.
Yeah.
And the whole idea, and a lot of this is even political, they say if you talk to somebody for 30 seconds or touch them, handshake, put your hand on their shoulder, something like that, that person will think very fondly of you forever.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, I met the guy. He wasn't a jerk. He was actually a pretty nice guy. Came
Down there.
You know.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a hugger myself anyway. I said all the women get a hug and half the men friends get a hug too. I mean, I love people.
Yeah.
But it's relationships. Build on relationships. My phone number's on my business card.
Right.
Personal phone number,
Yeah.
the one that's sitting over here on the
Yeah.
counter right
Yeah.
now.
I call him a lot.
And which I appreciate. And I appreciate what we're doing and things
It's
we're
fun,
able
too.
to do.
It's
to get information out to people. But what I'm saying is, I've had people call me and say, Mayor, this is Jane Doe, and I live in wherever, Gladden Farms, Continental Ranch, Dove Mountain. And, you know, there's a pretty bad pothole on such and such a road after that rain we had last week, and I'm a little concerned about it and stuff. Generally, I don't call the maintenance department, I call Terry Rosema and say, hey, Terry, got a call from Jane Doe, and, you know, there's a big pothole over there, and she's concerned about somebody either having a wreck or somebody getting hurt or whatever. Generally, the pothole gets filled that day.
That day, yeah.
You know, and we're pretty, not just because of the mayor. I mean, in Marana, we're pretty good about taking care of that, but that's relationships.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Jane Doe, and I might not if she walked right up in front of me, I might not know who she is. I did meet her somewhere and gave her a card.
Right.
Because I meet hundreds, thousands of people. Yeah. Relationship. That pothole got filled. That lady's feelings, not toward just me personally, but toward the whole town,
right,
toward the region, is phenomenal.
You know, first off, I do think people like yourself, like myself, we like people. We're people.
I love people.
I
don't just like them.
Yeah,
I love them.
it makes
people.
It's kind of easy for us to make these things happen. Right. But that's why it's important for people like you and I, that it is easy to keep pushing that harder, because that's how things get done. Again, it is who you know and what you know about people. See, that's because not only did you know them and did you have a relationship with them, you knew who to call. You weren't just going through the phone book going, well, who do I call about this problem with my brother? Well, no, I know this person, Representative Colby.
Right.
I know he can help me with this problem, because you were not only were you talking with them and building relationships with them, but you were taking mental inventory of what their skill sets were. I might need this person. I'll call this.
Relationships are how you get things done. You need this to have a little bit of knowledge about what you're talking about or what you're trying to do. You got to use this a lot of times to get things done. I'll even talk about some other level of relationship. Town of Marana, Northwest Fire, Marana School District, and Marana Health Center. 4 large institutions that operate in Marana. We're all looking at things about child care. Child care has become a real issue. It was before the pandemic, but after pandemic, it just screwed everything up. Yeah. So what we are looking at is, how do we help with child care for our town of Marana, Marana Health Care, Northwest Fire, or Marana Unified School District? We're talking now about a piece of dirt, building a facility, because we have relationships. Dr. Dan at the school, or Josh, the new administrator at MHC, or Brad Bradley, the chief at Northwest Fire, or Terry Rosema, or me talking. And we are people that go to lunch together. And like I said, half the time you don't talk about business. You talk about your grandkids, or whose daughter plays softball, or who, whatever, you know. We're looking at maybe trying to do a child care center. Now, it would be exclusively for people that work at one of those 4 institutions. But a lot of the young men and women and a lot of the young people we have children. Child care is so expensive anymore. I mean, literally.
More expensive than a college education in many cases.
If you're a school teacher making $40,000, they should make more, but that's kind of the going rate for a starting teacher, young woman, young man, and you have 2 children that you have to put in daycare because your spouse works and you work in order to make a house payment or a car payment. That teacher, half of the salary.
Yeah.
Half.
That's nuts.
Goes to child care.
Yeah.
And we said, we got to fix this because we have a relationship with those youngsters. And I call them youngsters. They're grown men and women, police officers and firefighters and healthcare professionals or teachers, But these young people are in our community providing a service, keeping us safe, educating our children, and all that kind of stuff. We need to figure out a way that they can have child care that they could afford or something. So the 4 of these entities are working with each other.
Good.
I don't know if it comes to fruition,
Right,
but the things
Well,
are
something
turning.
will happen.
But the relationship, if we disliked each other, I don't use the hate word because I kind of put it like the hate word is almost like the F-bomb.
Yes, I agree.
I just don't like that word.
Yeah.
But we all respect each other. Do we disagree at times? Do we have a little squabble with the school or the fire district or the health center occasionally?
Of course you do.
Yeah, but we fight with our siblings too.
I was getting ready, siblings, spouses,
right,
neighbors.
But I mean, we have a relationship. If we're going to fix what's happening in this country, and in our state, and in our county, and in our community, we're going to have to build the relationship.
And we're going to have to start next door.
You start with one person.
You start right where you're at. I think Terry said that. I think Chris said that. We talked about that. Start where you're at, neighbor to neighbor.
Well, you help one person, then they go help a person, because it's
now you got 2 or 3 people helping people, and you got 2 or 3
but
more.
I just tell you, Clint, I think we need to get back, and if we're going to solve a lot of these big problems, we're going to start at the base with you and me, and
100%.
our friends and our colleagues and our neighbors.
100%. 100%. Like I said, I was driving in to breakfast with you this morning, and I thought, I'm not in the social media business or the restaurant business or the food service, catering, banquet room business. I'm in the people business. I have relationships of the near 20 years that I've been in this community that are invaluable to me. I mean, I love these people. I love doing life with them. Right. I like being in that orbit. And it's one-on-one. And I know I could count on them, and they could count on me. And that's, I agree with you. That's how we start solving some of the big problems that we have, both locally, nationally. But it's one person at a time. And then recognizing that person's skill and how you can play off of each other so we can all be successful. Because that's what we're rooting for, isn't it, Ed? Right. We're rooting for all of us being successful.
But it's like a lot of times, like I said, it's not what you know.
It's who you know.
It's who you know.
Unbelievable.
And I'm not talking about just because they hold some position that could do something.
Exactly.
You know that individual, he or she, as a person.
Okay. I was responding to David real quick. You know, and it's not like it's manipulation. It's not like, oh, Ed can do this for me, or Ed has influence and he can. That's not what we're talking about. We're talking about taking action. In this case, you're talking leader to leader for the whole community, not for selfish interest, although there can be some of that mixed in. I mean, if you've got people serving people in your community out here, obviously you want to help them. Yeah. And if you can't help them, who do you call to help them?
I want to think that's why Marana has truly been blessed, is because of the different relationships we have. I go to functions a lot of time. I love little kids. I'm a professional grandpa.
Yeah, we are.
Little boys, little girls, and stuff like that. And a couple of them, like Amanda Wiggins has a little boy, and different ones have small children and stuff like that.
We're baby magnets is what we are, Ed.
If they're at a function and they have their little one, I'm carrying the little one around.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
At my church, family has a young fellow, his name is Santino, as a foster child. They've had him since birth. I really like, they'll bring him over and set him on my lap during church, and I'll hold him the whole time. But I mean, the whole thing is be a person. People will say, well, how do you want to be addressed? Depending on where it is.
Well, there might be formal events.
I said it might be Grandpa Ed.
Yeah.
Literally.
Yeah.
I'm very proud that I'm Grandpa Ed. In fact, I was telling you my oldest grandson's 20 today. And I need to call him and tell him he's not a teenager, he's a grown man, which is kind of scary. He's my grandson, you know.
Hey, if anybody follows us on social media, they know that there's almost like a running battle of who has more kids on their feed.
No,
we're baby magnets, and you know what? I believe, honestly, not to toot our own horn or anything, but I believe that speaks to the kind of character that you are, and I would hope that I am. If babies really respond to you and lean to you or reach for you,
well, half the pictures see of me on Facebook,
some baby,
are speaking to children at schools.
Yep.
Which I love to do. I can't read
one of my favorite pictures of you.
Can't read to them anymore. The be the I and kind. Mm-hmm. And one of the schools,
one of my favorite pictures.
With me in it, and but going to schools, and what I do now is I tell the youngsters, because of my eyesight issues, I can't read to you. I want you to read to me.
Beautiful.
And the children come and read, and there may be 2 or 3 of them read a small book or something, young girls and young boys and stuff. I love that part of the job. Mm-hmm. I deal with roads. I deal with parks. I deal with wastewater plants. I, fight our battles and all that kind of stuff. But the part I like about the job is the relationship. Yeah. Talking to children. I go to different social groups and speak to them. I go to churches, not necessarily my own, and speak to them. I'm friends with Rabbi Zimmerman. Mm-hmm. I'm not Jewish. Mm-hmm. I'm friends with Father Ed at St. Christopher's. I'm not Catholic either, but I've gone to functions at their facilities or done functions with them. Build relationships. Build relationships. They may not be exactly like you, whether it's worship or political party or whatever. They're still a person. And treat them like that.
Relationships are it's kind of like loyalty. They're two-way streets. They both go both ways. So I know this is almost redundant to say this, but if you want good relationships with people, be a good friend of them. Like you say, hold their baby, talk to them, and invite them to the ball game. Let's go have dinner. Don't talk about roads or building anything. There's plenty of time for that.
I've had Father Ed. He was doing a blessing of the police officers, blessing of the first responders. And I was invited to St. Christopher's Church. And I went over there and had a meal catered in by, one of the... I said, we're all people. We all want to do the same thing. We want to be safe. We want to be respected. We want our children respected. We want good education,
live in a nice house, have a nice car in a driveway.
Stuff. And I'm very comfortable doing that, but it's all the relationship, the relationship.
I find that's just my way of life. You and I are people. We've always been these people. Right. From a little kid, I'm sure with you, right? From a little kid, you're out there. You're talking to people.
Your relationships
friends,
starting
you're
your
building
family.
Relationships at 2
it's
years
mom,
old.
dad, brothers, sisters, grandparents, aunts and uncles, or whatever. But build relationships with everybody. And I always tell everybody, I'm not talking about a boyfriend or a girlfriend.
No.
I'm talking about respect that other person. I said, I know all kinds of stuff about people. I know their kid's name, their husband or wife's name, where they
Ed,
grew
we could
up,
write a book or
and
two or
all that
8.
kind of stuff, because that's important to me. That person has a job and they do it well.
Mm-hmm.
But there's a person behind that job.
Like they say in the movies and stuff. What's the backstory?
Right.
How do we get here? We're not going to see that on screen, but the backstory, I ask people anymore, especially when I'm meeting someone, especially if they're younger. My new approach to them is like, hey, Ed, tell me something about Ed that you want me to know.
Right.
And usually you'll get like almost a deer in the headlight look because people aren't taking that approach. And then when you say, no, I mean it, Bob, tell me something about you that you want me to know about you.
Right.
And the next thing you know, man, you're getting a stream of consciousness. They're telling you about where they grew up and where they went to school and the things they enjoy. You've opened the door to building a relationship with that person by asking them one simple question: tell me something about you.
Okay. I probably will end the day with a relationship.
It's all yours.
The person I fight with politically more than anybody in the world
Oh, I'm waiting for this. Do I know this?
is Regina Romero.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you know what Regina Romero and I do every time we're at a meeting together?
I know. I've seen you.
Big hug.
Yeah. Yeah.
I talk to Regina about her son and daughter and her husband. She talks to me about my grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
Do we fight some pretty serious battles that
Yes, you do.
get almost nasty at times? I don't like her ideologies or some of her ideas, but you could disagree without being disagreeable.
Amen.
And even though I really disagree with a lot of things she wants to do, I don't disrespect her as a young mother and a young woman and stuff. I just don't. I won't.
No.
And like I said, politically, we probably fight, and we're fighting over millions and billions of dollars here in the RTA and stuff.
And way of life and strategies.
And all this kind of stuff. And she disagrees with a lot of things I want to do and vice versa. But respect the person and disagree with the ideas if they're not suitable to what you think they should be.
I can vouch for that because I just saw the two of you not too long ago in a public setting. You'd have thought she was your daughter. I mean, you guys were tight. You were laughing. You're engaged. You're taking pictures.
Yeah, because, we've got to get back to that.
Yeah.
And, we're working on the RTA, try to finalize it. We're going to have a meeting next Thursday, not tomorrow, but next week. And we're trying to finalize the new RTA to get it back out to the public. Some of her needs are different than some of my needs. I need new intersections and widening of roads.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we do.
Her community as a whole is much older than mine, and she needs different things than I need. And we're trying to figure out a way to kind of wiggle toward the middle to where we could do a little bit of both. But be respectful. Build a relationship. I have her number in my phone. She has my number in hers.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of one of those kinds of things. Politically, we disagree on pretty much everything.
Mm-hmm. I always said if you know the right people to call, you don't have to do much. I mean, if you know, like in my case, I don't work on my car. I know who to call. My air conditioner guy. I have a guy for everything. Basically, my job consists is calling them and saying, "Hi, I have this issue. I need you to fix this." And I do know this for a fact: if everybody comes at it with that approach, I'm here to give as much as I receive. I'm here to serve. We're a better community right away if we each take that approach.
And if I want to leave everybody, I'm kind of getting redundant here, but if anybody had any questions or anything, but the thing I want to leave everybody with is you can disagree without being disagreeable.
You know who I heard say that the other day? He was talking about Coach John Wooden, was Bill Walton. And he closed his presentation with, you can be disagreeable, or you can disagree, without being disagreeable. I always give you or my mom the credit for
Right.
that.
And I have used that for a long time.
It's so true.
And I think we're going to be all right.
Yeah.
But you got to work on it every day.
You got to, amen. Hey, you know what? We're going to bring this to a close. Had a great time, as always, with you, Ed.
Thank you for the opportunity.
Well, it's our pleasure. We're going to take a little quick break. I don't know if anybody knows this, but we're expecting a baby around here, so it's going to interrupt our schedule for a few days. And like you and I spoke this morning, we are busy. We are busy,
yes,
people.
We are.
We're busy.
But busy is good.
And busy is good. You know, I want to also give our listeners a heads up. We're getting ready to do a software update. This podcast will be available in a few minutes in the repeated form. We appreciate everybody listening. We appreciate everybody watching. Anybody that wants to be a part of this, especially if you're local Marana, we have our Now You Know podcast series. We've got quite a few podcast series on our podcast channel. I want you to check that out. If you need anything from LTD with social media, reels are crazy, please reach out to us. Hey, thanks again for watching. We appreciate it. We appreciate you taking a little time out of your day to tune in. Thank you, Ed.
Thank you.